Hey friends, thank you so much for joining me in another drawing lesson. This time we're gonna go over the entire drawing and painting process of a lily. Okay, let me begin by putting down some basic guidelines, and I'll be back soon. I'll do that in time lapse, and then get in on the details in real time. Okay, so we've got all the major guidelines in place. Now what I'd like to do is draw perhaps one or two of the petals in real time, and then we can move on to draw the rest in time-lapse as well. Because I do attempt to do this in one video. And so you'll see that I work over my guidelines using very wavy light lines here. The edges of the petals tend to have a very wavy shape, sort of because they are very thin, and sort of causes them to fold. Get rid of the original line here, and you'll see how the shape resembles more of a petal or just a leaf in general. Now we have here an interesting phenomenon in which the leaf sort of curves, and to show that we'll draw this kind of a round edge here. And that sort of hints that it curves back here. And I'm going to add a very gentle light line all across the petal. Like this. It's sort of to indicate where I'm gonna color next. Now remember, we are planning to color this drawing, and so we don't want to add too many details when it comes to the pencil work itself. So we're gonna keep it very light and gentle. Otherwise, we're gonna have a hard time later on adding the watercolors with ease. Again, just like the previous one, I'm drawing a line all across the center of the petal. And now here we have something interesting. So this leaf sort of moves away from us, and then it bumps downwards, curves downwards. And to indicate that, we're gonna draw this type of shape. I saw this happen many times, and I wanted to sort of put that in here. And again, the line all across the center. Now let's work on one of these. I'm not sure how they are called, but it's very simple. You don't want to add too many details to these parts. Just draw their outer the contour and add this very light line in the center, sort of a strip in the center. We'll do this one as well with this sort of a strip in the center. And the rest of this I'm gonna do again in time-lapse. So look at what I do now, and I'll be back soon. It's gonna be just like what I've done with these three leaves. Nothing too interesting with the other ones. So let's get to it. Okay, I deliberately left this leaf for real time because something interesting does happen here. We have the edges of the leaf sort of waving about, and what happens is they sort of have this curve in which the leaf spills outwards. And so we will indicate that by drawing this wavy line and accompanying it with a straight line around here, this part, and you can sort of feel how it's the waviness of the leaf. And if you want to further strengthen that effect, perhaps we should get some more lines that go like this. Maybe let's clear this up a little bit, and here we will draw lines that go like that. And you can sort of feel the waviness of the leaf. So this is an important effect to get in. Now what I want to do is something a little unusual that I learned from Mark Crilly, who has an amazing how to draw channel, and that will be color this thing and then finally ink it. And the inking comes after the coloring. There's a good reason for that. It sort of seems like a more logical process to me. So what I'm going to do now is whip out the watercolors, and we'll begin coloring this in real time, really slowly, and you'll understand everything. So let's get to it. Okay, so let me show you what I'm doing here. I'm basically mixing that pink color with a lot of water, because I want this to be fairly bright. I don't want to go too dark with the color here. And I have this test paper on which I start to draw before I even touch this, because I don't want to accidentally get a very dark tone and mess things up. And so I'll use very generous quantities of water, which I usually don't do, I must say. I usually don't use large quantities of water. I tend to use way too much of the watercolor themselves. But anyway, this is what I'm going to do this time. And now, because when I load the brush, there's going to be a lot of paint in it, what I'm going to do is sort of color on the test paper and then move on to the real thing. Okay, so let's begin. I'll just prepare some trustworthy tissue, which we'll hopefully won't have to use too much, but if we do, you'll see how exactly. And I start wasting some of the color on the test paper, and then I go in to the real thing. And I make my way from left to right, because I don't want to smear my own drawing, my own coloring rather. And I simply begin coloring. This isn't really too complicated. Really, it's quite simple. You just have to remember what it was like being 10 years old. But on a more serious note, what you want to do with watercolors is, as you begin to apply that layer of water, you want to sort of, you'll have this sort of a dot, of a blot of color, and you want to smear it around. Now what I've noticed and I forgot to do is I forgot to tape the entire paper to the table, so I'm gonna do that. It'll take a second and I'll be back really soon because it's super important, and I'll explain why in a second. Okay, so I panicked a bit and you saw that. It's very important using sort of a masking tape or anything similar to tape the entire paper onto the table or the surface you're working on. And the reason is that when you apply the watercolors, they tend to make the paper crumple and they twist it, and if you tape it properly, you won't have too many issues when the tape comes off. So it's just like magic actually, because it looks like the paper is being warped, but it actually isn't. Now I made a mistake here. I went out of the lines, which is fine, and that happens quite a lot to me, but it's still gonna end up looking great. So as you've seen, I just apply this very gentle first layer of pink, and I'm not too worried about the layer being even, because it's fine if the colors are sort of, you know, changing, and it's fluid and it's great. Actually, I think it adds a very nice touch to the drawing. If it's not 100% perfect, try and get it, you know, as perfect as possible, but it's fine if it isn't. Again, now you see this these dark spots. You want to drag this drop of watercolor across the drawing. You want to evenly spread it out along the surface of what you're drawing. This is, I think, the biggest thing to take from this video, actually. And if you have too much, this is exactly why I have my toilet paper here, my tissue, just for that. So if I have too much color, I just dab it away. And you can see it's sort of very lightly, very light touch, sort of made that work itself out. And the thing is, if you have somewhere to smear the color to, you can always do that. So if you have too much color here, just drag it along to this part. So still a pretty, you know, manageable. Nothing too terrible happened. And so I think this is enough of just the first basic layer for the leaf. So I'm gonna kick it into time lapse, finish them up quickly, and perhaps add some more colors. And only first layer, and I'll be back for the second one. So I'll see you soon. Okay, friends, I'm back. Now what I've done is mix some green color for the stem and also for these parts here in the middle. I have, for the love of God, I don't know what they are called. So if anybody knows, comment, let me know. So I'll begin adding this green layer, and again the same concept. You want to get that color to be somewhat even, but don't fret about it too much. And here and also on these parts. And you've seen I've literally just continued painting, nothing special, no magic tricks here. Just good old painting. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to do this for the rest of the green parts of this drawing, and if I get stuck with that dark spot, I'm going to leave it in a strategic location, like under one of these, so it actually has, you know, makes some sense, because these parts will be darker than the rest. And so I'll do the rest of the first layer in time lapse, and including these little thingies, and I'll be back soon with the second layer. Okay, friends, we're done with the first layer. The thing is, look at that. It's sort of, it looks nice, but the drawing is flat. Now, in order to really give it the life it deserves, we need to add a second layer of watercolors, which is exactly what we're gonna do now. I won't try and make this a perfect layer, because I want to try something a little different, but rather I'll just use the center line as a guide and sort of darken the entire area around it, and I won't move to the outer sides of each petal because I want to sort of try that look and see where it gets us. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll apply the paint, and I really do this, you see, sort of almost aggressively. I don't calculate too much or try to be too accurate, because I want a large thick area that's darker than the outer parts of each petal. And we'll see what kind of effect we can achieve with this sort of color scheme. And later on we will be able to add a third layer that will really make some areas of this flower to really pop and look good. So for now I'm just adding this very raw, rough layer of darker tone of red, of sort of pinkish red. Now I almost notice what I do at the edges. I almost let the water bleed intentionally because I do want to get that effect. So you'll notice how sometimes it looks like the water and the color spread out. This is great. This is exactly the effect that we want to achieve. I may want to just sort of blend the outer edges a bit more, especially here. And that's good enough. And the shading we're going to use on the green parts here is going to be a little more simple. Just another layer of darker green, and that'll do the trick, I think. Now the way to really make this drawing, to really give it a finishing touch, is with colored pencils, and I just thought about it, and I think I'll make a separate video on the colored pencils part of this drawing, and you'll see how it really makes the transition between colors more fluid and makes it look more realistic. I think that's exactly what colored pencils do in these kinds of situations. They simply make the color look more realistic. And now I remixed some of the color because I ran out of the color in my palette, and I may have created a slightly darker or different tone, and this goes to show that it's okay. It doesn't have to be a perfect the perfect same tone that you were just using. I'm sort of correcting things that I think should be different. I'm adding a bit more shade, and it doesn't look too beautiful right now. It just looks like a simple colored, I don't know, maybe it looks beautiful to you. To me it's sort of like a still quite a basic drawing that needs to be added more width to, more depth to. So now let me mix in some green and do the green part in time-lapse. It's going to be very simple. You'll be able to follow using time-lapse alone. And I'll be back soon. Okay, just adding the finishing touches of this part of the drawing, the dark reddish tone, and we are done with the second layer. Now what I want to do is sort of add some details to using a third layer, and afterwards we will begin, we will actually wrap this up. and leave the rest for a lesson on the inking part and using the colored pencils. So I'm going in with yet another type of pink red, and I'm adding just small touches and dots here and there. And notice how these dots can spread out from the dark area that we've drawn earlier. It's fine. You can have them leave this area. And one final thing we'll do afterwards is again darken the long lines alongside each of the petals. So we'll do that now. I'm making it even darker than its surrounding. I'll also shade some of the areas that I believe are darker simply because of their the angle and their location. And notice how I sort of mix that in with the side of the brush. This is something I do occasionally. And between the leaves, so we have some darker areas that we have yet to shade. I've just done one here around this area because it's beneath this one, it's underneath this leaf and this leaf. Also here in this part you want to get that nice and dark all around the center here and under the green part, because this is a place where less light can reach. Here as well. Okay friends, so after thinking about it, I decided I do want to ink this on this video and to leave time for the next one to only be about the colored pencils. So I'm going to ink it in time-lapse. I do have a separate video on inking that I'll put a link to so you can kind of get the basics there if you need them. And I'll be back really soon to explain what I've done and to wrap this video up. So I'll see you soon. Okay friends, thank you so much for watching. This is still an unfinished drawing to me. What I'd like to do really on the next video is work with some of the watercolors I have here, of the colored pencils that I have here. They are watercolor pencils. They work well with watercolors. And that's it. I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you soon.